Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons and how to make Dungeons & Dragons as accessible, as winsome, and as playable immediately on walking into an FLGS as Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering has crushed this. Right? I just recently witnessed it. I was at an FLGS. They had tournaments going on, and during that tournament, I was doing board games, and two people walked in, and two different groups of people walked in and set up other Magic the Gathering games. And the whole place was just filled with people playing Magic the Gathering. It's accessible and winsome. So I did this whole video, and the idea was, why? Why can you walk into an FLGS on a Saturday at 4 p.m. and witness three groups of people playing Magic the Gathering, another group of people playing board games, and no one is playing D&D? Well, here's why, okay? Magic the Gathering is one-on-one. It has multiple formats. It's win-lose, okay? And, and it takes less than an hour, okay? That's a formula for win, right? What's Dungeons & Dragons? Formula for suck, right? Has a stigma if you play one-on-one, right? It shouldn't, because the game absolutely allows it and configures for it. But there's a stigma about playing one Dungeon Master with one player. I don't need to wonder this. There's actually people who have talked about this. On not just my, people have talked to me about it personally, and then other people have talked about it on their channels. So it's definitely a thing. All right, let's get all the way there. Okay, so how do we fix this? Adapt, right? Adapt Dungeons & Dragons. So first thing is, we're going to have to change Dungeons & Dragons to make it winsome and accessible, exactly the way Magic is, so that we can have people walk into an FLGS and play Dungeons & Dragons. Okay, so first of all, let's go right down the row, okay? First of all, multiple formats. Magic has Modern, Commander, and Standard. And that's just 3 formats. It has far more than that. But, okay, so first of all, format. Okay. Actually, let's get there. Okay, so how would we change Dungeons & Dragons to make this doable? Okay, so first of all, the game has to be played in 55 minutes. You sit down, and 55 minutes in, your Dungeon Master is like, and that's the story. Okay, and there's a beginning, a middle, and an end in 55 minutes, right? Now, first of all, I know this can be done because I've done it many times. I've played 1 hour Dungeons & Dragons. You'll find multiple videos on this channel about 1 hour Dungeons & Dragons, right? And I actually have witnesses who've witnessed my 1 hour Dungeons & Dragons and been like, oh yeah, it was super fast and highly enjoyable, right? Heck, the guy, there's another guy who has another channel. It's mostly hex-based. He does a lot of OSR hex-based stuff, but he signed off on my 1 hour D&D. All right, and I think it's Hexcrawler. I think that's his channel. I'll have to check. Sorry. Let me keep moving. All right. So the game is going to take 55 minutes. Period. End of sentence. Okay. 1 Dungeon Master, 1 player. Okay. Now, first of all, we're not going to be able to deal. The stigma will go away if this is successful. We will have the stigma when we start. It is just a thing in D&D, and it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle. But if this works, that stigma will go away, and this would be a great thing. Okay. All right. So next, formats. 3 formats. When the player comes in, they get to say which format they would like: combat, interaction, and exploration. And the Dungeon Master needs to be ready to run that. Okay. Now, there absolutely can be interaction and exploration in a game where the player says, I want a combat game, right? But both those things need to be no more than 1/3 of the game combined, right? And we need to honor what the player is saying. So if they say an exploration game, 2/3 of that game, out of 55 minutes, 40 minutes need to be dedicated to exploration. 15 minutes can be dedicated to social interaction, or if they say exploration, then combat and interaction can take up 15 minutes, but 40 minutes needs to be on exploration. Okay, so 3 different formats. The Dungeon Master is going to have to complete the story in 55 minutes. Okay, and then get this: win, lose. Okay, so basically the Dungeon Master. So win, lose. The Dungeon Master will declare if the player won or lost the session. Actually, and actually, we're not going to call it a session, right? I think what I would call it is the story pod. Let's use that right now. So that 1 hour is a story pod, right? Or is a story pod for Dungeons and Dragons, right? And that story pod is accessible and ready. Okay, all right. And the Dungeon Master will say you won or lost and mark it on your sheet. All right, so let's talk about this. So the way that this would work is, if we're going to build a situation where on a Saturday afternoon you could come in and expect that you could play Dungeons and Dragons for an hour with any Dungeon Master that was there, right? At any point, right? The way you would do this is the players would have their player character sheet, right? But then there would need to be some provenance for these games, right? For these sessions, for these story pods, provenance, right? And you would have a sheet that would get filled out. The Dungeon Master would sign it. The player would sign it, right? And say, this story pod took place on this date, right? And at this time, okay? And it was an exploration game, right? And in that game, the person got these 2 magic items, and they got this much gold, right? Or they might say, they completed the goal of the story pod, right? And so they won. Or it might say they got this 1 magic item, they got this much gold, but they lost because they did not, because they're a paladin, and they spent most of the time beating up townfolk, right? So I think it would need to be recorded, and the person would have to be able to bring provenance and say, okay, here's my records, right? Like, I've played 25 of these story pods, and I've won 16 of them, and I've lost 9, right? So did I catch it all there? One-on-one play, under 1 hour, multiple formats, win-lose, okay? And I think that's it. I think that's all of it. I think that covers it. Now, this would, and I think, and the other issue is, you wouldn't need to know each other, right? Like, and I think that's really interesting because Magic players don't need to know each other to play, right? And so this would take a lot of problems that Dungeons and Dragons has and get rid of them, and make the entire thing far more accessible, far more winsome, far more portable. And this could be run in any FLGS. Now, I know there's a lot here. This is a lot of thought. I think this is a good, but I think this is a good structure. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.